Ayn Rand Centre UK conference. We're all very happy to have you here. It was organised by Razi Ginsberg over there, the CEO of the Ayn Rand Centre UK. I'm Irene, and I'll be presenting the first speakers. By the way, there are toilets at the end of the corridor on the left if you need them. So the first talk will be Objectivism as a Productivity Tool, and it will be done by Nikos Sotirakopoulos, who is a teacher and visiting fellow at the Ayn Rand University. And then there is Tal Tsfany, the president and CEO of the Ayn Rand Institute. Give them a round of applause.
Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming on a Saturday. We really appreciate that. Noreen said I'm Tal. I'm the president and CEO of the Ayn Rand Institute. We're based in the United States. And if you haven't heard, we're an educational, philosophical organization promoting and trying to propagate the ideas of Ayn Rand through means of educational activities. And the leading activity is the Ayn Rand University that we've announced a couple of years ago. So at any point, if you want to ask us about what it is and how you can benefit from it, please don't hesitate to talk to any one of us. Do you want to say something before we start, or
no? Let's
kick it off. You want to sit or you want to stand?
I always like to stand. What do you prefer?
I will sit because my leg is injured. So if you'll see me limping around, just that I tore a little bit.
Weird if you sit and I stand, or you both sit.
Yeah, the standard should be sitting. Okay. Okay. So we're going to talk about the concept of productiveness and how central it is in the philosophy of Ayn Rand, and why do we need it. Right. So let me start from something foundational, right? Where you start with philosophy is all about basic questions. What is the human function? If you think about what we do as humans, our means of survival is what? What do we do as humans? Any ideas? If you take a cat or a dog and you see their nature of how they survive and the means by which they survive, you can see that they have a specific nature that allows them to live qua a dog or a cat, right? What is the human function? What do we eat? We eat. So is that the human function? One of them. Sure, but not unique. What is the unique function of humans?
Work.
What comes before work? What? Reason? Thinking? Okay, so let's break it down a little bit. Okay, so we perceive the world just like other animals, and then we do something that they don't do, which is we abstract it with the power of concepts. The fact that I can say a word like a chair or a table or a conference room means something to you, doesn't mean anything to any other creature that we know of, right? And that is the ability to abstract reality with the power of concepts. We can talk about, if any one of you read the Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology, Rand goes all the way to breaking down the process by which you create objective concepts. But that's what we do. Now, let's say that I hold the words in my head, right? So, I know there's 120,000 words. We use about half of them in the English language, and we use it to describe the fact that I'm here and I'm wearing a jacket, and whatever I want to say, I can use with the power of abstraction, right? What do we do with the words? We talk, and we create some kind of a vision of reality in our head. I say, I'm going to start a company. I'm going to go on a walk, right? So I'm creating a reality in my head with the power of those concepts, and then I act on it. So here's what I've done. I had perception, which is not unique to humans, but then I got the level of conception, which is the ability to abstract reality with the power of words. And then I use it in order to act and then do something in reality. So if you think about the human function, you can actually divide it into two parts: thought and action, right? That's what we do. Now, the problem is that you see people stuck in one of them. A lot of people, and by the way, a lot of people who call themselves objectivists do that, they are stuck in their head, meaning they think a lot about what's right and what should be in the world and how we fix the world and how I become the, world's richest person by creating a company with a great idea. And they think and they think and they think and they end up in their parents' basement thinking and thinking and thinking, ending up as miserable human beings that are never fulfilled.
Around 2005, I thought I had the idea of Tinder in real life. I thought how cool it would be to open a bar where you'd only go if you want to find a romantic partner. And then when Tinder came around, I was like, oh, they stole my idea.
They stole your idea.
Yeah.
Because it was in your head.
It was in my head.
Exactly. So that is one wrong way to think about it, which is, oh, I'm thinking. The other part is I don't think, I let other people think for me, and I just act. And you become like a slave to somebody else's thinking. So think a lot about people you know who wake up every morning and go through the motions of living without having their own vision about what life should be like. So if you have friends, unfortunately, we all know some people who's like, yeah, you ask them, how are you doing? And they're like, I can't complain. That's the level of being if you don't live under your vision and you're acting on somebody else's vision. So you just go through the motions of making money, raising a family, doing whatever the culture, society, religion, your parents, whatever that authority that thinks for you decide. Now, if you think about productiveness, productiveness is actually the link between thought and action. And this is why Ayn Rand defines it as a virtue. The ability to turn your rational vision into action and shape the world in your vision. If you read the Fountainhead, if you see the heroes in Atlas Shrugged, it's very clear that what unites the heroes is the ability to create a vision in their mind of what they're passionate about, and then doing what needs to be done in order to take it into fruition, into action. Which is a thing by itself. And a lot of people, including objectivists, get confused about what does it mean to take and put your vision into practice. It requires persistence and perseverance, and with dealing with the messiness of the world, dealing with irrational people, raising money for your company from different people, doing whatever needs to be done, of course, in a principled way, in order to get it done. And getting things done is not easy. So this is just an introduction to motivate you why productiveness is a key ingredient in the process of you living as a human. So I'll let Nikos take it from here.
Yeah, so the main reason why at least once every year I try to read or actually listen to the Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged is how much inspiring I find it in terms of going out and do things. And this is because the view that Rand has on productiveness is unique. When I say unique, I mean it. I don't know of a single other philosopher or thinker in history who sees the idea of creating things as something moral, not cool, not I guess we need it because otherwise we're gonna starve, we're gonna die, as something moral. And also as a function, not of just brute force, as a function of your mind. So Rand says, what is productiveness? Productiveness is the application of reason to the problem of survival. What does this mean? You use your mind to create stuff so that you live a good life. What does this tell us already? That all work is intellectual work. You might be a construction worker. You might be a bin collector. I've worked as a bin collector. You might be a heart surgeon. Anything you do, it has to do with how you use your mind in order to create something in life. So forget all this Marxist stuff. Oh, work, progress comes from labor. What labor? You cannot do labor without using your mind. Someone has to create all these things that we see that makes us so much more productive. So in a way, Rand gives you the message, whatever you do, you're an engineer. You create stuff. And this is actually nice, right? You wake up in the morning and you have the vision, okay, what I'm doing has meaning. Maybe what I'm doing is not the most exciting thing in the world, but it's something I can take pride of. And also says something else, which is again super unique. She says, productiveness is your recognition of morality. Recognition of morality, because it says it means you have accepted that you want to live as a human being, which goes back to what you said. In order to live, I have to think and I have to create. And this is good. She gives you the thumbs up. Compare this to any other view out there about productiveness. Think, for example, about the Marxist view. It says work is alienating. Well, okay, maybe one day work will be meaningful, but the foreseeable future, work is alienating. Work is exploitation. This is almost shameful, right? You go to work and you hate yourself. But not because work is bad, because these intellectuals have actually convinced you that work is bad. Or take an ideology which is even more popular than Marxism. What is the view of Christianity about productive work? Well, you might say it's good, it's the Calvinist ethos, but think again. In Christianity, why do we work? Because we fell from paradise. We beat...
Hey, wait, it's a Jewish concept. Why are you taking it away from the Jewish?
Jewish, Christian Jewish.
We created the Garden of Eden. It's
And then we took it over. So notice though, how horrible an idea. You've beaten the fruit of knowledge, and now your punishment is to work. How motivating it is to wake up on Monday morning and go to work if you know that this is a punishment for a sin that you haven't committed. And here comes one philosophy that tells you, no, you know what? Productiveness is something good and moral, and it is what makes you human. A leftist relative of mine says, we don't live to work. And Ayn Rand says, no, in a way we do. We live through work, and there's nothing wrong with that. Thumbs up for work. So she views work as a heroic endeavor. What better tool is there for productivity? So Tal has said heroic. Why heroic?
So before I go to heroic, I want to read you a very controversial quote from Atlas Shrugged that a lot of people ask me about. It says, there's nothing of any importance in life except how well you do your work. Nothing. Only that. Whatever else you are will come from that. It's the only measure of human value. So she's saying something very radical. She's saying, you are your work. What do you think she means by that? Everything comes from that. Any idea of why is she saying there's only that? There's nothing else. Any idea why she's taking it to such an extreme when she says there's only work?
And spoilers, it doesn't mean you should only work. Don't date your beloved. Don't have
relax.
Only work. Only work.
So any idea why she says there's only that? Everything else comes from it. Any idea? So without it, you won't survive. Right? No, I don't think that's the reason why she's saying everything comes from that. It's true that is the means of our survival. But there's something deeper she's saying.
It's your identity.
It's your identity in what sense? You are what you do.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also you are what you do based on how you do it.
True.
But what was the back?
Yeah. With other people.
Yeah.
But what is the? I'm missing a term that I think it's at the core of one's identity. What are you trying to achieve with the fact that you see yourself produce something? What is the reward? Happiness, self-esteem. That's the concept I was looking for.
Right. Happiness, self-esteem. Yeah.
Exactly. So the concept of the idea of self-esteem is, think about it, it's like the cashed out, the psychological benefits of seeing yourself act in reality. Everything. I'll give you an example. What she means by it's the only measure of human value, or everything will come from that, is, let's say you have a romantic partner. What are you bringing to the table? Why would they choose you? After, she tells you how handsome you are, okay? And But what comes after that? You're basically trading self-esteem or the self-image that you have on yourself. That's what you have to offer, right? Your personality and what you have to offer to other being is the way you see yourself. Now that comes from the subconscious mind evaluating what you do and on a daily basis. Rand says, if you think there's a God watching you 24/7 all the time and judging you with the good and bad, it exists. It doesn't live in the sky with a white beard. Nikos like beard. It exists in your subconscious mind. It's just yourself viewing yourself. Now, if you see a person who can envision a reality and then take it into action and succeeds in manifesting it, expressing it, then your inner God will say, wow, that's a person worth loving. And the way you express yourself, your self-esteem, your confidence comes from that. So again, it goes back to my earlier point about this is the human function. And if it was to verbalize it in simpler terms, it's like, how well am I living as a human? And that, the criteria, is your productive work. So this is what I wanted to take out of that quote. We have a question already. Okay, yes, let's take a question.
So when she says that you are defined by your work, is it descriptive, as in she's making a claim that we necessarily do derive all or most of our self-esteem from the way that we work, or is it prescriptive, saying we should actually not try to derive our self-esteem from other things, and we should find our self-esteem through the way that we work?
In a way, it's both, because there should be no difference. So what you do should be based on how you view your ideal self, let's say. And it hasn't got to do with what work you do. In the Fountainhead, one of the good characters is a builder. I mean, his talent or his education, whatever, that's the path of life he took. But he's an excellent builder. And he's very proud of himself. So the point is, how good you are in what you do makes you the person you are. What type of person he is? Mike. He's reliable, he's a good friend, and he's very good at his work. It all comes down to the same skills, to the same traits of his character. The person he is has to do with what he puts in his work. Imagine someone who is slacking off, lazy, unmotivated in whatever work he does. What are the odds that this person is going to be a reliable friend when you need them, or that his life is going to be a good life? Not very possible.
And I would just add, it's like, okay, if it doesn't come from your work, where would it come from? Do you have other suggestions? Right. Yeah, so you have a standard, a moral standard that you judge yourself by, right? So the question, it's true. I mean, that's the self-esteem religious people's like, how good of a Christian am I, right? So they judge themselves according to a specific standard and say, am I a good follower? What is a Christian virtue? Give me a Christian virtue.
Humble.
Am I humble?
Whatever that.
Okay. I can give you Jewish Christian
Poor.
virtues or whatever. Well, how poor am I?
Yeah, because if the rich, what's the saying? The rich is like the camel that cannot go through the
needle.
Yeah. So.
So what I wanted to say is, the question is, where is that standard coming from? Now you can derive it from someone, again, in the skies or whatever. Rand is trying to objectify that standard and it says, like Nikos, it's the means of your survival. We're deriving productiveness from the way you live as a human. She's not inventing it out of nowhere. It's like a scientist saying, let's observe and derive principles out of our observation. For me, objectivism is really a scientific, if you will, philosophy, because it's derived from reality and from the scientific method of observing and then extracting it. Now let's talk about the concept of heroism.
Productiveness, remember, for us is a heroic endeavor.
Right. You should sit down.
We're like the Godfather. The Don stands up, and then everyone, the consigliere stands up.
We're gonna sit down for. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna stand because I'm speaking. But when we're not speaking, we're sitting there.
Yeah, but now it's weird. Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about heroism. What is a hero? Anyone has an idea what makes someone a hero?
Overcoming difficulties.
Overcoming difficulties. Okay, so that's one aspect of a hero. What is heroic?
Journey.
A journey,
Pursuing values.
principle. Okay, so the way I like to think about heroes is they're standing somewhere and they're looking forward and up to something noble, something they want to achieve. If you think about every movie, every story you've ever heard, it has three parts. Someone wants something really bad. They go through a lot to achieve it, and they get it, or a version of it. Right? That basically summarized every story you've ever heard. Right? That is the heroic journey. Why? Because it's the human journey. It's the ability to envision a better life or a better achievement or a lover or whatever that value is. The valley of despair, you have to go sometimes in order to act it out and manifest it, even against all odds. And then the achievement, the reward of what it means. Think about the last scene of the Fountainhead. Of like, he had to go through so much.
Spoiler.
I just said the last scene. I didn't say what happens there. And what is the reward of being a hero? So if you think about what productiveness has to do with heroism, it actually what connects the two parts and what's in the middle. So like I said, the first part is thinking. The first part is envisioning. The architect in the Fountainhead has a vision for his life, right? If you think about any of your favorite heroes, no matter what they are, Spider-Man, okay? They have a vision of what they're trying to achieve. And then there's the end, of course, which is like, I'm achieving something that I envisioned, or a version of that. Sometimes the hero doesn't end up exactly where they wanted, which is another interesting thing about humans. You cannot really predict everything. The things change as you grow as a hero. So sometimes like, I wanted to be here, but actually in the middle of the road, I was like, I can be here. So sometimes you see the hero kind of changing their mind about what their goal is. But what connects those two dots? This, as they call it, the journey of the hero, or the hero's journey, or the valley of despair, whatever you want to call it.
What type of film is Spider-Man? It is a action film.
It's an action.
So it's action.
Exactly. So
This was not rehearsed.
so action, and we'll talk about principles of action maybe later on if we have the time, but productiveness is the virtue that connects those two things. It's the ability to take your vision and apply it into reality, and whatever it takes. And the journey, by the way, is part of you being a hero. A lot of people I hear today, especially young people, always think in outcomes. I'll be happy when I get X, or when I'll become this, or there's enough zeros in my bank account. So let me break the news to you. You won't be happy when you'll get your first $1 million or $10 million. I just came back from a weekend with a group of people that each one of them has private jets, okay? And you know what was the main theme of that conference? Can you imagine about 250 people that are really super wealthy? What was the current theme of the talks in that weekend?
How to find meaning in life?
No,
Happiness.
no, no. Any other guesses?
Time management.
No,
Making it more.
no, no. Any other guesses? We're talking about a full weekend of super rich people.
With mental peace or something like that.
Mental?
Mental peace. Like how to manage your
Worse than that.
Managing stress.
Close.
How not to kill yourself.
Getting closer. It was mainly addiction and depression. We're talking about people with private jets. Okay, so again, let me break the news to you. Your happiness and your self-esteem are dependent on the journey. or your ability to see yourself acting out a vision. It doesn't matter if you end up with a private jet or just the best kindergarten teacher you want to be. It's about what do you have to do in order to get to materialize that vision and be the best you can be according to your own vision. Now, there's a whole discussion about how you create that vision, because you won't fall in love with a hero that has a very average vision. It's like, yeah, I just want to be a software developer and be pretty average at it. Let's write a movie about that. What would that mean, to write a movie about someone who wants to be an average software? If you want to be a Steve Jobs, that's worth a movie, right? So what happens to people who focus either on thought and on action is how those people ended up with a lot of zeros in their bank account and private jets, but not a lot of happiness. So those three components of vision, action, and reward are all tied together through this middle part, which we call productiveness. And I think the next thing we'll kind of unpack is, what does it mean to be productive? So for me, being heroic means having all those three ingredients. And the thing that is not being talked about is, because we really like visions, like Nikos said, oh, they stole my idea, right? It's like, your idea is worth nothing if it's not acted out on. Nothing, zero. Oh, what if I'll talk to someone about my idea? Talk to everybody about your idea. It's still worth nothing, right? Ideas are just the beginning. They're a starting point. There's a vision, they're a direction. But you are making no progress whatsoever if you're not moving forward. So being heroic is having a vision and doing what needs to be done productively in order to get to your reward. So that's the way I think about the connection between heroism and productiveness.
So one last point from me, because I want to leave some time for discussion. I tried at some point to reverse engineer how is it that Randian heroes, the heroes in the novels, are so productive. And I came up with 3-4 things, but there's one that stands out for me. And it is that they all have a very clear purpose. Am I pronouncing it right? Yesterday you didn't.
Yes, purpose.
Purpose. They have a very clear purpose. Actually, Rand says that purpose is one of the 3 cardinal values. And for a long time, I couldn't understand, why is purpose so important? And then it clicked. It clicked that what purpose does is it gives you your marching orders, literally. So what is Howard Rourke's, the hero in the Fountainhead, biggest purpose? I want to become an architect. So if you think about it, his day is very simple. The decisions he has to take are very, very simple, even if they're difficult decisions. What does it take to be a good architect? I know exactly what it takes. I need to work hard in the university. Then I need to learn from someone who I trust. And then I want to build buildings my way. Simple. So having a central purpose tells you where is your artillery shooting, because your artillery should be shooting in one direction. So having a purpose gives you clarity. And there was one passage from a book, which is actually not from Ayn Rand, which is one of the most brilliant things I've ever read in my life that made me really understand it. And it's a book you suggested to me, a book by Stephen Pressfield called Turning Pro. So Pressfield, for most of his life, was a wannabe author. So he wanted to be, he had the idea, he didn't act on it. And then at some point, in his 30s, he takes a decision. He had gathered some money from doing difficult manual labor, and he says, I'm gonna go to the countryside, I'm gonna take with me only my typing machine, my books, and my cat. And he says, I will either write my first book, or I'll kill myself. Now, this is dark, but notice the clarity. Everything was simple. I'll finish my book, or I'll kill myself. So he said, for a year, no football, no news, no newspapers, no women, nothing. He said he was eating liver and eggs. He said he was living like Rocky. And he did it. Now, later he tells us the book sucked. It wasn't even published. But it doesn't matter. What matters is he proved to himself, I'm an author. So that's the key with purpose. The clarity it gives you. It asks the question, what shall I do? Imagine you're an aspiring athlete and it's a Saturday night. What shall I do? Go out, party with cocaine and prostitute, whatever, or do something else? Your purpose tells you exactly what you have to do, if it is clear and it's clear in your mind. So this is why the argument is your life becomes easier and clear. It becomes clearer when you have a central purpose. Easy when it comes to what you should do and what are the decisions you should take. So this is why for Rand, purpose is one of the three cardinal values. Reason, purpose, and a third one which we're not going to spoil because it's what will bring everything together. So Tal, purpose. Anything else when it comes to reverse engineering the heroes?
So first, just to motivate you to read that book, I think the most brilliant part of that book of Turning Pro is an analogy that he gives about the price of living an amateur life. So he says you have two options, and I like that because it really describes in a different way what Rand is trying to portray through her novels. You can make a choice. You can live like an amateur or live like a professional. An amateur life is predictable, easy, doesn't require a lot of effort. You have a good time. What's wrong with having a good time? Go live your life like everybody else. You know, no strain. A professional life, what does it require? You show up every day, you're consistent. You're there when it rains and it's really hard and it's 4 a.m. and you don't want to wake up, and think about what it means to wake up every day and do the same exact thing because you want to be a professional at it. So it's hard and it's unpredictable and it's straining and it's tough to be a professional. Why even choose to live a life like that? What is the point? He says, go live your amateur life, but pay the price. And this is where I think he kind of nails it with the analogy. He says, the price of living like an amateur is living in a shadow. And you ask yourself, living in a shadow of what? What is casting the shadow? When he says, good, exactly. He says, what's casting the shadow is the knowledge of what you could have been. And the reason why you don't have self-esteem when you are not taking yourself to the limit of what you can be is that your subconscious mind knows what you're capable of. You know, this inner God that Rand talks about is so smart because it looks at you and it looks at reality and says, you can do much more. And you're not. And that gap is a gap of self-esteem. The professional goes out to the light. He's exposed. It hurts, it burns. But the reward is knowing that you are trying your best to live as a professional. So be professional at living means know what you want, which is for me the hardest question. What is really my light? Where am I going out to? What is worth all that effort? So I would ask another question. What is your architecture? What are you so passionate about that you cannot wait to wake up an hour earlier and do more of it? Now I know that for a lot of us, like, I haven't found it. And that's, I think, a mystery by itself. It's like, how do we even find our architecture? Which we can talk about tomorrow, by the way. I'm doing like a mini workshop about the process by which you should find your passion. So that's the first thing. But then having the personality, the character, the traits to show up as a professional on a daily basis. Am I going to be the best version of myself? Because again, the reward is a life well lived with the inner knowledge that I did my best to become who I wanted to be. I talk to a lot of older people, and it's amazing. When you talk to them and you ask about their regrets, it's always pointing in the same direction. What I didn't do. It's not what I've done and failed. It's what I didn't do. So ask yourself, maybe in the break, what am I not doing? Because the only limited resource you have is time. And the number of days, it's amazing. There's this book, 4,000 Weeks. The number of days between now and the day you die, unfortunately, is not that high. You can actually count it. It's in the thousands, tens of thousands if you're young, right? So the time is running out. And the question is, what are you doing to maximize your self-esteem and be the hero you can be? The last thing I want to talk about is the principles of productiveness. What does it mean to show up every day? What are the principles that allow you to take your vision and manifest it? And that's a lot of knowledge that I acquired when I moved to the Silicon Valley and started a company thinking, like, so it's going to be so cool to start a company and make a lot of money. Let's go, right? And then you hit the wall that tells you, oh, you want to succeed in creating a company? It's going to be super hard. Here's the track, the obstacle track we're going to put in front of you, and you have to pass through things you haven't thought about in order to get like raise money and deal with people and hire, and people leave you and they cheat you, and there are logistic stuff you haven't thought about, and then their competitor does a move that just kills your idea completely. Company wants to buy you out. People betray you. All kinds of things that you actually deal with in order to go to the other side of saying, I am building a company that is worth a lot of money, or whatever, however you want to measure your success. What I've learned is a couple of principles, and Rand talks a lot about it. The first thing, are you serious about doing it? Because without persistence, without the ability to say, I'm going to do each one of those obstacle courses because I'm serious about getting to the end. Without that, you'll never, and I see again, a lot of people that understand the concepts, but never develop the character that actually can go through an obstacle course. And it doesn't have to be creating a company. It could be becoming the best doctor you want to be, or the best bricklayer. I don't know what it is that you want to be. It's the ability to build a character that shows up every day, that says, it's hard, but I'm going to do it. My vision is so worth it that I'm going to do it, right? And the consistency of showing up every day and the perseverance that it takes to show up. That's one thing. The second thing that I found out is what I call the separation of thought and action. So as I said, our human function is to think, to envision, and then to act. Now, a lot of people don't separate those two, and it's always in their mind, it's the same thing. So let's say, okay, I'm going to do something amazing. I'll take my current challenge, which is I'm going to write a book. Okay? So that is a thought. And now you're sitting down, it's 7 a.m. because you said you're going to write in the morning. So I'm sitting down at 7 a.m. I'm going to write the book. I'm starting to write and it sucks, right? I'm reading it, it's like, this is not worth reading. So I said, okay, let me go back to my outline because it sucks, right? So I go back to my outline and change it a little bit. I go back to writing. It still sucks. So I go back to my outline. And it's a loop that I never can get out of. So think about it this way. You know how before you go to war, you have this strategy tent, right? And we're all sitting there as officers and like, let's strategize. We're going to, flank them from here and come from here and surprise them like that. And we're going to do this. And this is what the army is going to do, and so on and so forth. You have a full plan. And then the soldiers go to war. Now, do you think everything is going to work according to plan? Of course not. They're going to surprise you, right? Now, what are you going to do in the middle of the battlefield if things don't work according to plan? Are you going to run back to your tent and say, hold, everybody hold. It's not working according to my plan. I'm going to rethink everything. What do you need to do in order to win a war? Ideas? You're in the battlefield and things are not going according to plan. What do? You improvise. You do whatever it takes. You change a plan on the fly and you push through, right? It doesn't have to be a war. It's a mental war, right? But the idea is that we can't really truly separate out thinking and action, because sometimes action requires very short-term planning and maneuvering and improvising in order to get it done. Because if you're going to retreat every time to your tent and say, oh, my plan is not good enough, you're never going to make progress. So it's really the separation of thought and action. And when you're executing, you're doing it. It won't help you to say, oh, okay, let me rethink everything because my plan is not working. Your plan is not going to work, period. The question, what are you going to do when it's not going to work? Are you going to go back and rethink the whole thing and never make progress? Or are you going to push through and say, what am I dealing with there? Is there's like someone coming at me that I didn't expect? What am I going to do now? So this separation, there's a professor in Harvard that I did a workshop with. He called it being on the balcony or on the dance floor. You can't be on both. When you're on the balcony, you're looking at everything. It's like, okay, I see what's going on. Let me plan what I'm going to do. And then you go to the dance floor and you dance, right? So in which mindset are you? And so that separation of mindsets is really critical. So that's another thing. And I see a lot of people, again, understanding the concepts, but when I push them into like, what are you doing with it? I see this tendency to say, I sit in my planning tent, right? My strategy tent, and I envision a world. And if the world is not going to abide by my vision, I'm going to retreat back to my world, right? And so let me give you a piece of advice. Get messy. Get messy. I mean, if you don't deal with stuff that is not planned, you're not doing it hard enough. Right? So that is one of the principles of productiveness, which is you have to deal with whatever comes. And if you have to go work in a quarry, I won't say who and why they're working in a quarry, you go work in a quarry for a while because things are not panning out the way you thought they're gonna be. So there's several more of what I call productiveness principles. But there's a lot that goes into that journey of a hero. And by the way, the really interesting part of every story is the unexpected. Right? What happens in the valley of despair of the heroic journey that we like, wow, he wanted it and we thought, he's going to get there, but it's not that easy. Right? As someone I really admire says to me, nothing interesting happened on highways. And what she meant by that is like, if you think that things in life, you get on a highway, you go, take your exit and you're done. That's not an interesting story. Get to the countryside. The winding roads, the things that are unexpected. This is where something interesting is going to happen.
The other day, I took a detour from the highway to see Leonidas from the 300 statue because it's not anymore on the highway. So literally, that's
exactly. So get off of the highway and embrace the messiness of life and the unpredictability of life sometimes, because this is what productiveness requires. So you want to say one more thing, or are we going to?
Let's say. So I want to leave time for points from the audience and questions. So anything that you want to add or didn't make sense, or you want to challenge, or you want to elaborate. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me see a show of hands approximately what we've got.
Okay.
Okay, I think there is time, or we might take the last questions all together and we'll reply to whichever.
We have
is our
55 minutes? Okay.
No, 55
So we got
more.
we got 5.
Okay, so actually, if we have 5 more, let's take all the questions and then you address.
No, one by one. Sorry, I can't hold it. Let's start. Let's just see how many we can get.
Can you talk about productiveness and purpose in the context of raising kids, raising a family? Because for a lot of people, that is their sense of purpose, and it gives them a lot of time.
Unless you're a conscious stay-home parent that sees yourself as an educator first and foremost, and you would want to do that with your child for a specific period of time, I wouldn't call it a central purpose. It cannot be your central purpose. So raising a child is one of the highest values you can have. But I don't think that unless you see it as your profession, it will become a central purpose. You want to be a great parent. Everybody wants to be a great parent, and there's a lot that goes into that. But are you a professional educator? If you're not, that's not your central purpose. You're going to be a great dad, but that's not enough. So for me, parenting is super important, and people underestimate what kind of undertaking it is to be a parent. and they don't think enough about what it means to be a good parent and what is the standard of good parenting even. So there's a lot to learn about education and what it means to raise a human being, a happy human being. But if you do that, unless you do that professionally, which, by the way, I know several, mainly moms, who say, no, that's what I'm going to do for the next 10 years, and I want to be the best at it. You know what happens usually? They become so good, there's like, what else can I do with it? So one of the people, the moms that I know, she did that for about 5-6 years. She was so successful. She said, I need to share that knowledge. So now she's giving workshops of parenting to young kids. So for me, I would be a little suspicious if somebody says that's my central purpose. It could be, but I think it's pretty rare. Did that make sense to you, or you? Because
Sure. Yes.
it does. Okay. Second question.
Yeah, so Nikos, earlier you mentioned that you really try to read out the analysis right at least once a year because it shows you what it means to be productive.
As an inspiration.
As an inspiration. Okay. So I guess off that, my question is, how important do you think it is to have a concretization of what these things actually mean? Because you can have a complete understanding of, okay, I need to be productive, I need to use my mind, I need to have self-esteem, this is the way to get there. How important is it to have a form of romantic art where you can concretize these abstractions?
It is so important, almost as having a teacher. Let me give you an example. You go out in the world and there's all this intellectual poison out there. I was reading a book last week, which supposedly was one of the top 10 motivational books. It's called Outliers, to tell you how people become great. And the conclusion is, it's up to luck, timing, and their environment. And then you read, that's right, you read Ayn Rand going 10 years of his life, torturing himself to come up with a new invention. And he does it, the guy who started from nothing. Or you hear people saying, well, you always have to compromise, or, you know, when you make something, just put it out in the market, it will sell, no one's gonna care. And then you see someone who's not to be named in a book, who they tell him, look, I'm gonna give you a lot of money, and I want you to create this crap. I mean, for us, it's not crap, but in your judgment, it's a crap. And he says, you know what? I'm going to say no, and I'm going to work in a quarry. Because this is what integrity looks like. And he also tells them, this is the most selfish act you've ever seen in your life. So you see this and you're like, you know what? All this BS that I get from out there, it's not the only way. There's another way. So for me, it is crucial. As a way to clear your mind, but also as a reminder. It's a bit like art. Actually, literally, this is art. It reminds you how things could be and how things should be. So it's, and I encourage people to do so. I listen to them, not the first time you should read them, but then listen to them, particularly while walking. For me, it's the best calming and inspirational activity.
Do you think it's a necessity?
I would take that. I think it gives you the reason why. Without the vision, there's no heroic journey. So if you have a very strong vision and you're completely motivated in doing what you're doing, it's not the time to consume art. You have the fuel. When you feel like you're down on fuel and motivation, that's where I go back and read. To really refuel myself. Like, why am I doing this? Sometimes it's torture, right? I don't know, again, anyone really try to write a book. For me, it's torture. It's literally sitting down, forcing myself to sit down. And because other things come much easier to me, right? But this decision. So when I get despaired and I was like, why am I doing this? Let me remind myself. And another thing that I do is I write for myself quotes that really speak to me, so I don't have to go back and read the whole book. And there's like a list of motivational quotes and things I write for myself to remind myself, is this worth it? Because I'm I'm getting depressed here. So yeah, art gives you the fuel for me. Other question? Yes.
One more.
One. You had the.
So I am, well, suppose, right, I am a recovering addict. So I have a very clear vision of what I want according to my rationality. But sometimes, for example, if I feel like I am further away from my goal or something like that, then I might have the tendency to abandon this rationality as a whole, because I know what escapism, I know what hedonism feels like in that moment. So how can my rationality reinforce itself?
Let me take it first for So I'll tell you what I read in a great book which is called Atomic Habits. It says, good habits is you create a chain. I didn't drink today, I didn't drink the day before. At some point you might break the chain. The most important thing is not to break twice, because what would this mean? It would mean that the change is not at the part of your identity, of who I am. We talked about self-esteem. Self-esteem is how you view yourself. So let me change it to, let's say, not to avoid the negative, but towards a positive example. You want to be a writer. You write 8 consecutive days, 80 consecutive days. In the 81st day, you start persuading yourself, I'm a writer. The more you persuade yourself you're a writer, the easier it is to write. The more you write, the more, so it's a virtuous circle. Equally, when you haven't drunk for 79 days, you start telling yourself, I'm not a drinker. If you're not a drinker, even if you drink one day, it's okay. You leave it behind. You're not a drinker, so you start your next stream of not drinking. So that's why self-esteem is so important. It's, have you persuaded yourself that you don't drink anymore? Or have you persuaded yourself that you're a writer? Remember what we said with Stephen Preston. I'm going to finish this book or kill myself. Why? Because I want to persuade myself that this is who I am, that this is my identity.
I'll take it at the more philosophical level of, you talk about rationality. Going back to my rationality. The question is, what are you trying to achieve? And do you understand what is at stake and what really is, because it's not a duty. Don't think about rationality as a duty. Oh, I have to. You don't have to do anything. Right? Your choice at any given moment is to either progress your life, take it forward, or take it backwards, or do nothing. So it's not a duty, it's a choice of how do I want to live my life and the self-reputation that comes with it. So a little bit of the way you asked the question sounded like, so there's a duty I need to do, I need to be rational, and if I fail, I'm hedonistic or irrational, and that's not good. I would say, take that dogma out. Lose everything and rebuild your standard of a code of morality. It's very simple. I'm an organism. It has requirements. Some of them are basic, like I need to eat, I need to breathe, right? Some of them are highly complicated. I think the reason why we don't understand the concept of happiness that I'm obsessed with is that it's just freaking hard. Being a happy human is very complicated. It has a lot of variants, a lot of things in it. And it's no wonder that we just have no idea what it is. I mean, every human should know, like, what is the purpose? And we don't teach ourselves what happiness is because it's very complicated. But it's your choice. I mean, Ayn Rand says, take anything you want and pay for it. You choose what you want and you choose your price. And the way Stephen Pressfield put it, it's like, do you want to be a professional or do you want to be an amateur? And it's your choice. So if your perspective is like, it's me that decides, it's not God or Ayn Rand or whoever said, I need to. No, I don't take anything on dogma. I actually challenge Rand every time to say, why productiveness again? Why rationality? Why independent thinking? Why can't I take ideas from other people? Right? So I didn't accept anything on dogma. I said, she just proved to me every time, as a deep thinker, that she proved the connection between every virtue, okay? And by the way, it's okay to drink sometimes and relax and say, I'm going to party with my friends over the weekend. It's great. Go relax. I don't know anyone that relaxes better than Howard Roark. If you read those scenes where he relaxes, I mean, I wish I could relax like him, right? So she talks about the celebration of life through sex. All of those, it's not, you know, this dogmatic, malevolent view of the world, like work, work, work. It's the opposite. It's the opposite. Love it. Work with passion. If you're losing it, go rethink. Maybe, and I'm, by the way, if you're in your 20s, my hypothesis is that you should be searching right now, right? More than deciding. People, what they do very early in life, because the culture is telling them, it's like, choose something you're passionate about, go with it. And then they create their midlife crisis, just like, how did I end up here? Because I made a decision what to major in when I was 22, and now that's my life for 20 years, and like, it sucks, I don't like it. So questioning, am I doing what I need to be doing? People are stuck in relationships they don't like anymore. It's like, so why are you with that person? It's like, I don't know. We're married, we have kids, so what? If you don't like it, change it. And it's hard and it's grueling sometimes, but again, it's your choice. So the perspective I have is a perspective of, I really like the term motivation by love or motivation by fear. And I think objectivism is driving you towards motivation by love and values rather than avoiding pain. If you think about the more primitive philosophies like religions, they're all about, it's all about avoiding pain, right? And so at the core of it, because again, it's more of the way you ask the question that triggered me to go there, is like, there's no dogma, there's no 10 commandments. You want to?
Could I just follow up?
Yes.
So like, yes, so I get that from what you said, that I'm supposed to be judging myself, like on, not judging, but motivating myself on the on the first person perspective. But earlier in the talk, you talked about like judging yourself as like having your inner God judge yourself as if it is a third person and going like, it's this person approaching.
By the way, it's a benevolent God. It's a beautiful God that wants me to be happy.
Well,
it's more like a guardian angel that says, yeah, you're on the right path. Go. But if I'm procrastinating for a month now and I'm making it, it's like, be careful, because it's not like, again, it's not God telling me what to do or I'm going to burn in hell. It's just the requirements of success and thriving and fulfillment that are guiding me towards that. And if you want to end up a fulfilled, happy person that says, somebody asked me once, it made me think about, how can you verbalize the state of being happy, which is a prolonged state of being? It's actually, I'm good at living as myself. Because, and in that sentence, there's a lot. It's like, I know myself, which is very hard. We'll talk about it tomorrow, how to know yourself. And then I'm good at actually doing it. And that's such an uplifting sentence. Like, I'm good at living as myself. Is where you want to end up. So that is a very benevolent, supporting proposition, because God has a lot of negative connotations, right? Very dogmatic. So take away take away that word. Let's ignore it, because it's it has a. Think about like a guide, your own tour guide that says, I'm going to take you to the path that's going to be exciting, interesting, not always successful, but we're going to write our own heroic journey. What's your name? One second. Juno? And here's how I think about it. Let's say you're going to die at 100, okay? And think about it this way. The day you're going to die, if you're going to be able to say, I've lived my life to the fullest, I took every opportunity to express myself as a human being in many, many different ways. I knew who I am, and I acted principally in the process of trying to make myself. If you're able to say that the day you died, that's what a well-lived life looks like. What it means to you exactly, and how you pour that content into the challenge of being who you are, that's the challenge. But that's the beauty of writing your own story. So with that, we'll end, and thank you very much.